Fiance cheated with my adopted sister. She's pregnant. He wants me to raise the child as my own and plans to give my family's inheritance, estate to the adopted sister. I immediately contacted my dad and sent the adopted sister away. What he didn't know was, I was actually pregnant, but not with his child. And the child of the adopted sister he loved wasn't his either. When he understood everything, he almost collapsed. Eventually, a car accident left him in a vegetative state, and he went bankrupt. After a year of recovery, I returned home. My fiancé came to the airport to pick me up, bringing the mixed-race adopted sister with him. I was about to give Sarah a hug, but David forcefully pushed me away. Sarah is pregnant, don't be clumsy and hurt her. After you left, I was drugged, and Sarah helped me. I naturally can't let her, and the child in her belly down. Anyway, your uterus damaged, difficult to conceive, so just take care of Sir's child, as your own from now on. The adopted sister took my hand to explain, but her eyes were full of triumph. Eleanor, don't mind. Ever since I got pregnant with David's child, he's been overly anxious. Sarah pretended to be intimate and took my hand. Eleanor, you must be tired after getting off the plane. David, why don't we take her home to rest first? David, however, threw the car keys at me. You drive. I'll stay in the back seat with Sarah, she gets motion sickness. He forcibly pushed me into the driver's seat, then turned and helped Sarah towards the back seat. Sarah looked wronged. David, is this okay? I think Eleanor seems angry. How dare she be angry? David glanced at me dismissively. Eleanor was living it up abroad, enjoying herself every day. It's only right she does some work now that she's back. As for you, you're carrying a child now, of course I have to take good care of you. He gently coaxed Sarah, but I curled my lips in self-mockery. In the car accident a year ago, I desperately protected David. But I suffered a severe uterine hemorrhage and significant damage. Back then, he held me with red-rimmed eyes and swore, Eleanor, I can go my whole life without children, as long as you're alive and well. But it wasn't long before he was constantly showing me photos of his friends' children with envy. He would intentionally or unintentionally bring up his desire for his own bloodline. I went abroad for recovery, also hoping to have a child for him, so David could be a father. Now, he was using a tone of charity, telling me to raise his child with his adopted sister. In the rearview mirror, Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder, her dark, radiant face beaming with happiness. David was stroking her swollen belly with a face full of doting affection. Noticing my gaze, he awkwardly pursed his lips and said displeasedly, Eleanor, why aren't you paying attention to your driving? What are you looking at? Don't I know what you're thinking? You're just jealous that Sarah is pregnant. But you're useless, you can't have children, and I can't have no heir. No matter which of you gives birth, it will be a grandchild of your family, capable of inheriting your family property, estate, legacy in the future. Don't be so narrow-minded. But he didn't know that Sarah was an adopted orphan dad, adopted during a business trip in Africa. Her parents died due to war, and I felt sympathy and pity for her. After discussing with Dad, we introduced her as my adopted sister, to give her confidence. Over the years, I treated Sarah like a real sister, giving her the best of everything. But in the end, I misjudged her, a woman with no blood relation. How could her child possibly inherit my family's property, legacy? Seeing that I said nothing, David thought I had conceded. He softened his voice, Eleanor, just be obedient. You should be grateful to Sarah. Her pregnancy is also helping you relieve pressure. Sarah said sweetly, Eleanor, don't worry. I'll let the child care for you, in your old age. I won't interfere with your relationship with David. I'll return to Africa after the child is born. I couldn't be bothered to argue with them, and drove in silence. David, however, thought I was resentful. Eleanor, what do you mean? Sarah is being polite and explaining to you, are you deaf or mute? Suppressing the frustration in my heart, I said, I went abroad for a year, and the sister I cherished is pregnant with my fiance's child. What do you want me to say? Should I tell her to get rid of the child? As soon as I finished speaking, someone suddenly ran a red light at the corner. I slammed on the brakes in a panic, and Sarah screamed. She covered her lower abdomen with a tearful voice, curling up. My stomach hurt so much. Eleanor, are you angry with me, and punishing me on purpose? David grabbed a handful of my hair, and said sternly, are you crazy? If you hurt Sarah and the child, I'll make you pay. You used to be so gentle and sensible, how did you become so vicious now? Sarah suddenly coughed violently, tears welling up in her eyes. Eleanor, you can hit me or curse me, but don't take your anger out on my child. David, I can't breathe. David squeezed my shoulder hard, warning, go to the hospital now. Stop playing games. Cold sweat trickled down my forehead. I drove to the hospital, enduring the pain. Robert had already replied to the message I sent on my phone. The coastal city shipping magnate, usually cool and dignified in public, was exceptionally eager with me. Sarah, I'm coming to you, now, wait for me. David helped Aurora sit on the bench outside the exam room, thoughtfully wiping the sweat from her forehead. Aurora glanced at me, her eyes full of disdain. But she said softly, Sarah, your face looks so pale, are you sick? David seemed not to notice my deathly pale face. He turned and ordered, don't just stand there stupidly, go get Aurora a cup of warm water. Aurora let out a soft chuckle, malice flashing in her amber eyes, unique to her mixed heritage. Don't bother Sarah, she's probably too lazy to get it, I'll go myself. David looked up at me, with displeasure, glaring. What are you standing there for? Didn't you hear me tell you to get the water? He grabbed my wrist and yanked me towards the hot water dispenser. I couldn't break free. I watched helplessly as the scalding hot water poured onto my skin. My hand instantly swelled red and blistered. Intense pain hit me. The David standing before me, his face cold and hard, felt utterly foreign. The man who had pressed his face against the glass outside the ICU, looking at me with tear-filled eyes, and swearing he'd treat me well forever, was finally gone. Returning to the waiting area, Aurora glanced triumphantly at my injured hand. Then she let out a low groan. David, the baby just kicked me. He immediately knelt down, pressing his ear to her belly, his eyes and brows so tender they seemed to melt. My gaze swept over the sheepskin shoes on Aurora's feet. My expression froze. Last month, during a video call, David said he had custom-ordered a pair of shoes for me from Paris. What arrived was a mass-produced style found everywhere on the market. It turned out the limited edition pair was on Aurora's feet. But clearly, before I went abroad, David had strongly disliked Aurora. His mother had an affair with a wealthy businessman back then. When I asked him to help me look after Aurora, he even hugged me, acting wronged. Sarah, for her sake, because she's your stepsister, I'll have my secretary look after her more. Switzerland is cold, make sure you stay warm there. Remember to call me every day. Every day of treatment was exceptionally painful. I had to endure severe drug reactions. Video calls with David also went from once a day to once a month. I was so immersed in the joy of being able to bear him a child that I didn't notice his change. In a daze, I remembered a video call from 6 months ago. The hem of a pale pink skirt flashed in the corner of his study. I asked David who it was, but he said it was the cleaning lady. Now that I think about it, it was clearly Aurora. My heart felt a pang of bitterness, and my mouth filled with a sour taste. They had already secretly hooked up long before I knew it. Aurora suddenly clutched her head and said sweetly, David, I think my blood sugar is low. David immediately became anxious. Let Sarah watch you. I'll go to the car to get you some sugar. As soon as he left, the smile faded from Aurora's face. She got up and came closer to me. Sarah, you must be very sad right now, right? But it's not good for a barren woman like you to cling to David. He needs a woman who can bear him children. I looked at her coldly. When you were adopted, you cried and said you'd repay me someday. Is seducing my fiancé and getting pregnant with his child what you call repayment? She sneered, didn't you adopt me just to show off how superior you are, wanting me to be your slave? Dream on. I'm going to step all over you. I narrowed my eyes at her. You're truly disgusting. Aurora's pupils constricted. Clutching her belly, she collapsed onto the ground. A strong force came from behind me. I barely managed to lean against the wall to keep from falling. David rushed forward, scooped her up to comfort her, and roared at me, Sarah, can't you be reasonable? Even if you're unhappy, you should think about the baby. How could you bully Aurora? Acting like this, how could I possibly let you look after the baby later? He seemed certain I would willingly become their child's nanny. I slowly wiped my hand. I find it dirty. David's face turned ashen. He actually slapped me across the face. Apologized to Aurora immediately. She's your sister, how can you talk like that? My mouth filled with the taste of blood. You're the ones who should apologize. He frowned in displeasure, about to say something. But then the broadcast suddenly announced, Ms. Aurora, please report to exam room number 3. As David turned, holding Aurora, he threw another warning at me, we'll settle this when we get home tonight. In David's mind, I would give my life for him, willing to go abroad and endure painful treatment just to bear him a child. He was convinced I would never leave him, but he was wrong. I once loved him with my life, but if loving someone means being trampled into the dirt, then you truly lose yourself. My hand gently rested on my abdomen, my expression softening. There, a small, unexpected life was stirring. As they emerged from the exam room, Daniel's call came through. Eleanor, I'm at the Southside project site. It'll be a while before I get back. I curved my lips, smiling lightly as I told him to drive slowly and be careful. David looked at the smile on my lips and paused. He said in a low voice, who are you talking to? I froze for a moment, then hung up the phone and said coldly, "None of your business." He drew a sharp breath, seemingly not expecting this reaction from me. David softened his voice, "Eleanor, I am your fiance after all." Before he could finish, Jessica's pretty face clouded slightly, and she stumbled, leaning towards me, as if to collide. She cried out, "Eleanor, be careful." I stepped back several paces, but my purse dropped to the ground. The delicate ceramic bottle shattered, and brown pills scattered everywhere. Jessica clutched her mouth and staggered a few steps, collapsing into David's arms, her deep-set eyes filled with tears. "Oh my God, are these abortion pills? Eleanor, can you really not even tolerate my child?" David grabbed my neck, pressing me to the ground. "Eleanor, you can't even have children yourself, and you want to harm Jessica?" My face turned red, and I could barely breathe. Struggling to pry open his iron-like fingers, I said with a sob, "This was a potent tonic, prescribed by a specialist doctor someone found for me, incredibly expensive. If you don't believe me, take it to a hospital for testing." The person who once said he would never betray me in this life was no longer the person before me. David's face changed drastically, a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. Jessica suddenly slid down the wall to the ground. "David, the baby's kicking hurts so much." David turned and ran to her, crushing the scattered pills with his foot as he stepped. Before, if a servant had spilled my nourishing tonic, David would have fired them with a stern face. But now, I doubt he would even glance at me, if I fainted right in front of him. I had come back specifically for him, only for him to deliver such a heavy blow. I crouched down to clean up the mess on the ground. A black cufflink caught my eye. This was the cufflink of Jessica's bodyguard with the darker skin tone, and it had a suggestive stain on it. Clutching the cufflink, I went to find David. The lounge door was slightly ajar, letting out hushed voices. Jessica's sweet voice sounded, carrying a unique exotic charm. "David, are you really planning to marry Eleanor later? What about me and the baby if she has your child?" David was silent for a moment, then sighed. "Jessica, after all, I built the company up with Eleanor's help back then. But she's become increasingly rigid and boring over the years. The person in my heart now is you. Her uterus is practically ruined from being hit. She's desperate for a child to save face. Once the baby is born, you'll just say you're going to a specialized clinic abroad for recuperation, and she'll even have to kneel and thank you for giving her an heir. Once I find a chance to make her sign the inheritance rights agreement, I'll bring you back, and we'll be a family of 3. His cold laughter pierced my eardrums, and the blood in my body gradually turned cold. These years, I had damaged my health from entertaining clients for his company's development. He said I wasn't steady enough, so I suppressed my once lively nature. Now, these had all become his reasons for despising me. The sounds of intimacy gradually rose from the lounge. David's voice was suppressed. "Jessica, your body has become so much more wonderful since you got pregnant. I can't get enough." Jessica whimpered slightly, sniffling, "But with Eleanor back, it's not good for us to do this, at home." David scoffed lightly. "Tomorrow, I'll find an excuse to make her move out." I covered my mouth and stumbled back to the hallway. Not long after, David came looking for me. "Jessica has a persistent cough. The doctor detected that her immunity is low due to pregnancy, and she has severe allergies triggered by something in your presence. You'll have to move out while she's pregnant." He expected me to make a scene, but I simply nodded faintly in agreement. After all, knowing about their affair, staying any longer would make me stupid and pathetic. David pursed his thin lips, about to speak. Jessica came over, holding a prenatal report and linking her arm through his. A blush colored her darker skin tone. "David, the doctor said our son is very healthy." David put his arm around her waist, his brows full of joy. "Eleanor, your family lineage will have an heir now. You should treat Jessica and the baby well from now on." I interrupted him, my gaze cold. "A prenatal report can tell you the gender. Fetal sex determination is prohibited in a hospital. Just what kind of doctor did Mr. David find with such extraordinary connections?" David's smile froze on his face. Ashley's eyes welled up, her face full of grievance. "Sarah, what do you mean by this? Even if you hate me, you shouldn't make things difficult for David." She turned and threw herself into David Miller's arms. "David, I'm scared." The surrounding crowd started to stir, people who didn't know the truth pointing fingers at me. The older sister can't stand her sister being pregnant. Could she be sleeping with her sister's husband? This woman is awful. She can't have children herself, and now she doesn't want her stepsister to have one. Her stepsister is mixed race, you know. That tramp even went abroad to be a mistress. A doctor in a white coat sternly rebuked me. "Relative, please do not disturb the other pregnant patient's prenatal appointments." He glanced at me with distaste. "Breaking up other people's families. Karma will catch up to you." David Miller's eyes blazed with anger. "Sarah Peterson. You can't have children yourself, so you're jealous of Ashley. People from her background are just naturally fertile. Unlike you, even if you could give birth, it'd be a sickly child. He shoved me hard, and my lower back hit the table corner. A searing pain like a needle prick shot through my abdomen. I protected my stomach, stumbling back a step. Suddenly, a deep, cold voice sounded in my ear. Who dare say the child in my wife's belly is sickly? Robert Davis' tall, imposing figure approached, his arm wrapping steadily around my waist. The warmth of his palm seeped through my clothes, making my eyes sting with tears. David Miller's pupils constricted. Robert Davis. What are you doing here? He acted as if he hadn't heard, his gaze on me soft and gentle, but his presence radiated the pressure of a superior when facing David Miller. David Miller's face was displeased, but constrained by Robert Davis' status as the Bay Harbor shipping magnate, he dared not say more. He stared at Robert Davis' hand on my waist, and questioned coldly, Sarah Peterson, what is your relationship with him? I looked at him calmly. As you can see, he is the father of my child, and my soon-to-be husband. David Miller gasped, then sneered. I get it now. You're jealous Ashley is pregnant, so you brought him here to put on a show to trick me. You just want to force me to abandon Ashley and the baby. I didn't show the fear he expected at being exposed. Instead, I took Robert Davis' arm, ready to leave. Think whatever you want. From now on, there's nothing between us. David Miller abruptly grabbed my wrist. Impossible. How could you really be pregnant? You were told you couldn't easily conceive. Sarah Peterson, how dare you betray me? Robert Davis countered by seizing David Miller's shoulder, his grip fierce. David Miller cried out in pain and let go, his eyes full of resentment. Robert Davis sneered and shielded me behind him. You have the nerve to talk about betrayal. Sarah went through hell receiving treatment abroad to fix her body and give you children, yet you were sleeping around with that tramp. When she was drugged and nearly assaulted, you were having an affair with this woman back home. What right do you have to question Sarah? David Miller's temples throbbed. Shut up. Sarah Peterson, you clearly said you only loved me your whole life. I looked at him distantly. I did love you, but something tainted, I don't want it anymore. David Miller seemed stung. You think I'm tainted? You're carrying a bastard in your belly. Were you sleeping with Robert Davis long ago? I trembled with anger. Robert Davis soothingly stroked the top of my head. He punched David Miller in the face, knocking him to the ground. David Miller, you think everyone is as despicable as you. Her pregnancy was an accident. I was the lucky one. David Miller spat out a mouthful of blood. Sarah Peterson, you think Robert Davis really cares about you? He's just after the Peterson family's shipping empire. I was the one who truly wanted to marry you. Even if you couldn't have children, I was willing to let you adopt Ashley's son, and raise him as your own heir. I curled my lips in a sneer. An orphan who survived by illegal immigration from a slum. Does the child she bore deserve to be raised by me, to inherit the Peterson family? Ashley froze, and David Miller was stunned in place. What slum? Ashley was clearly born to someone Uncle Michael met while developing the branch office in Africa. I scoffed. Her parents stole secrets from my dad's company in Africa and died in an airstrike while escaping. My dad took pity on her and fabricated an identity to adopt her, never expecting to raise an ungrateful wretch. Ashley clutched her chest and sobbed. Sarah, why are you lying about me? My head hurt so much. David, I think the baby and I were scared. David Miller fumbled to support her, but still glared at me fiercely. Even if Ashley's background is problematic, the baby is innocent. Go get rid of the child. Our wedding is still on. Later, Chloe's child can acknowledge you as mother. Both the Ye and Shen families will have heirs. What more could you possibly be unsatisfied with? Can't you be a little more generous? Before I could speak, David scoffed. Years ago, when your Shen family was on the verge of bankruptcy and your company's capital chain broke, it was Soph who used her own money to fill the hole for you. When your father was undergoing chemotherapy for cancer, she sought out famous doctors everywhere to find medicine. Now, for the sake of someone who lies constantly, you're accusing her of being petty. Mark's face turned pale. Chloe suddenly began to gag violently. Taking advantage of his distraction, David wrapped an arm around me and turned to leave. Mark suddenly roared from behind us, Sophia, we're already engaged. You think you can just break off the engagement like that? Your dad will never agree. I slowly raised the hand I was holding David's with. Mr. Shen needn't worry. Your Shen family couldn't compare to the David family of Coast Harbor, even in 100 years. Compared to you, David is 1,000, 10,000 times better. After coming out from the ceremony, David thoughtfully fastened my seatbelt. Hesitantly, I asked, why are you so good to me? With your status, neither the Ye family nor the child in my belly requires you to commit to marriage. His movements paused, and a flush actually appeared on his face. When we were playing house as kids, I told you I'd marry you when I grew up. He slid the pigeon egg-sized wedding ring onto my fingertip. Soph, I meant it. And now, my wish is granted. Mark's face was gloomy, but Chloe excitedly grabbed his wrist. Mark, let's go find Dad. Dad definitely won't agree to Sophia breaking off the engagement. He'll definitely make her raise the child in my belly. But when Mark drove to the Ye family mansion, he was stopped outside by the butler. Mr. Ye asks that you, two leave. Mark then knelt down with a thud. Please, Uncle Richard, grant me a meeting. The door opened, and Richard Ye smashed an ashtray on Mark's head. You betrayed my daughter, and you still have the nerve to come see me? His hawk-like gaze swept over Chloe. Butler, send someone to throw out this imposter's luggage. Chloe's eyes widened. She stepped forward, trying to take his hand. Dad, don't you want me anymore? Richard Ye flung her hand away in disgust. You, an adopted child, think you're worthy of stealing my daughter's things. After my wife died, I never touched another woman. It was Soph who feared you'd be discriminated against and told everyone you were my child. Not only are you ungrateful, but you shamelessly seduced her fiance. Seeing this, Mark quickly declared his loyalty. Uncle Richard, Sophia and I will have the wedding as planned. After Chloe's child is born, I'll get rid of her and the child. As for Soph, I'll have Chloe's child acknowledge her as mother. From now on, she can focus on raising the child, and we can find a chance to have more later. Richard Ye kicked him hard in the chest, his eyes full of fury. Let my daughter raise your bastard child. You're truly insane. Do you actually want to marry Soph, or do you just want a child to inherit the Ye family, and swallow up my company later? Sweat dripped from Mark's forehead. Uncle Richard, it's not like that. I really can't lose Soph. Please, give me another chance. Richard Ye coldly scoffed, interrupting him. Stop your act, it's disgusting. Your mother had an affair with a wealthy businessman back then, and you hated her to the bone. Yet now you've done the same despicable thing. With that, he ordered his men to slam the gate shut. Get these two pieces of trash out of here. When Mark drove Chloe home, he ran several red lights in frustration along the way. Chloe blinked, saying affectionately, Mark, you'll scare the baby doing that. Her striking features were particularly captivating and alluring, but Mark wasn't in the mood to appreciate them. He mumbled a perfunctory, his gaze suddenly freezing. There was a dark red hickey on Chloe's neck, faintly visible beneath the black lace collar. But he didn't remember kissing her there. Returning to the mansion, Mark didn't take care of her usual needs, helping her get ready, making her fresh juice, for Chloe as he usually would. Instead, he walked straight into the study, ignoring Chloe, calling out behind him. He felt increasingly uncomfortable. Sophia was clearly devoted to him. How could she possibly be pregnant with someone else's child? The doctors had said it was difficult for her to conceive. Wasn't it a good thing that someone was pregnant now? He admitted he had indeed been seduced by Chloe, which was why he had gotten carried away, and gotten involved with her. But what man doesn't make mistakes? If Eleanor just turned a blind eye, they could have peace. He would still marry her, and she wouldn't have to find ways to have a child, or endure the pain of pregnancy. But he didn't expect Eleanor to be so stubborn, even bringing in David to pretend she was pregnant. And Eleanor's father was also extremely unhappy with his actions. Were he and Eleanor really going to end up breaking off the engagement? He could indulge himself, lost in Ashley's soft, warm embrace. But the thought of Eleanor not being his wife made his heart ache. James rubbed his throbbing temples and instructed his secretary to investigate Ashley. For some reason, a sense of unease lingered in his heart. He stayed in the study until late into the night before returning to his room. Ashley was pregnant with his child after all, he couldn't just abandon her. But then he heard Ashley's hushed voice from inside. You messed things up and you didn't even tell me. Wasn't the plan for Eleanor to be humiliated and killed in Switzerland? How could she survive, and even be rescued by David? James clenched his fists, about to push the door open, when he received a message from his secretary. The surveillance footage showed Ashley, wearing a sexy lace slip, sneaking barefoot into the guest room at the end of the hall. A moment later, the tall figure of Ashley's bodyguard also slipped inside. As a man, James knew exactly what was happening. Breathing heavily, he ignored Ashley's struggles and dragged her to the hospital. You bitch. No wonder you and that bodyguard were always acting close, giving each other looks. A look of terror flashed across Ashley's face, then she forced herself to appear calm. James, are you doubting me? James sneered, I'm taking you for an amniocentesis DNA test right now. He muttered, no wonder the fetus is always moving so much. I heard black kids are just naturally restless. Ashley pressed her lips together, not daring to say more. When the report came back, James' face turned livid, and he grabbed Ashley by the neck. Still dare to say you didn't betray me? You have low-class blood running in your veins. He spat, you slept around with the bodyguard behind my back, and you expect me to raise your bastard? Ashley looked at the line that read, exclusion of biological paternity, and her honey-colored face instantly turned ashen. Who are you to talk, Eleanor? Couldn't he get pregnant with your child even if she was perfectly healthy? You have a low sperm count, she shrieked back. You predestined to raise other men's children. James was so angry his teeth were chattering. He grabbed her hair and slammed her head against the wall. Blood gushed from Ashley's forehead, and onlookers, unable to bear it, stepped forward to stop him. Only then did he release her, dragging Ashley back to the car. The woman beside him was trembling. It took James a long time to dial the phone. Eleanor, I need to talk to you. But David's low voice answered from the other end, Ellie's in the shower. Mr. Miller, please stop bothering us. The call was instantly cut off. James punched the steering wheel. David and I were at the flower studio picking out a wedding bouquet. My phone suddenly rang a few times. David glanced at it and hung up for me. Spam call. Don't worry about it. I chuckled lightly. Was that James? He affectionately buried his head in the crook of my neck and nudged me. Yes, not important. You're only allowed to think about me today. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the glass greenhouse. James stormed in, his face grim. Eleanor, have you made enough of a scene? Come home with me. He scoffed, was pretending to be pregnant fun. I know you're angry about me and Ashley, but you're not actually going to marry him, are you? He reached out to grab me, making David tense up completely. I put my hand on his arm and said softly, I'll handle this. Turning to James, I said, James, control yourself. At that, his eyes became bloodshot. Who was it who used to chase after me calling me, James? Who got hurt in a car accident for me? And now, just because you're upset, you go and find some random guy out of spite. I've come here myself to apologize. What more do you want? I just found him incredibly annoying. With a resigned sigh, I held up my hand. See this wedding ring? The day you and Ashley went for her prenatal checkup, David and I already got legally married. I looked him in the eye. I was never throwing a tantrum with you. I genuinely don't want you anymore. James stumbled and grabbed onto a nearby table for support. Eleanor, he whispered, you weren't just saying that out of anger. Tiffany and I were just having a fling. Why did you have to go this far? I sneered coldly, a fling that resulted in a child. Mr. Sterling, you're truly gifted. His face twitched, and he frowned, saying, I found out the truth. Tiffany had an affair with the bodyguard. The child isn't mine at all. But you, why are you pregnant with his child? I looked at him coldly, my eyes filled with frost. This child is Robert's, conceived the night he saved me after I was drugged. The pregnancy is real, and the marriage is real. Are you satisfied with that answer? A flicker of confusion crossed his eyes. But the doctor clearly said your uterus was damaged, and your chances of getting pregnant were slim. I pulled up my sleeve, revealing the bruised needle marks. That's why I received treatment in Switzerland for a year. Getting pregnant with Robert's child was an accident, but it also proves my treatment was successful. After I found out I was pregnant, I originally intended to come home to discuss it with you. But instead, you gave me quite a surprise. David Sterling's face drained of color. Trembling, he reached out to grab me, but Robert pushed him away. Don't touch her with your dirty hands. Kat got injured shielding you in a car accident. Even with a high fever, she accompanied you on business trips to negotiate partnerships. She gave up the Miller family projects for your company. She did everything she could for you. She even found out about the unexpected pregnancy. Her first reaction was to not keep the child, fearing you would be upset or angry. If not for your betrayal and infidelity, Tiffany wouldn't have had someone harass Kat, and she wouldn't have gotten pregnant with my child because of it. You are the one who started everything. You totally failed her after all she did. David Sterling froze completely. Normally, if someone disrespected him, and said he only revived his company because of me, I would sternly rebuke them. But now, I just smiled, watching Robert scold him, my eyes devoid of any past affection. His eyes surprisingly welled up. He suddenly knelt down, grabbing onto my leg. Catherine Miller, Tiffany and I are over, and the child she's carrying has nothing to do with me. Can't you really give me another chance? As long as you divorce Robert, we can be together like before. I'll even raise the child you're carrying. I just found it utterly absurd. I shook off his hand. Do you know what you're saying? Eager to be the father of our child. You're not worthy. David Sterling, you yourself said you were tired of how boring and dull I was. Now it seems you've got what you wanted. From now on, whoever you want to be with, and whoever you want to have children with, has nothing to do with me. He shook his head desperately. No, you won't, Catherine Miller. I know you can't let go. You love me so much. How could you bear to leave me? If you really leave me, you will definitely regret it. No one in this world will love you more than I do. His words were incredibly shameless, infuriating me to the point of laughter. The only thing I regret is not seeing your fake sincerity, and your disgusting true colors sooner. That year when I was 18, he kissed me under the fireworks and said he would pluck the stars for me one day. But later, when he bought a star and named it after Tiffany, he had long since cast aside the vows he made to me. Robert pinned David Sterling against the flower wall. Who do you think you are, talking about love? His eyes were filled with hostility. Kat revised proposals for you, entertained clients for you. You falsely claimed you didn't need help from the Miller family, calling it an insult to your pride. She used her own money and her own connections to support you. You didn't know how to cherish her, so naturally, someone else will appreciate and love her. I chased Kat for so long, but after she got together with you, she cut off contact with me. And what about you? She left for a year for treatment, and you couldn't keep it in your pants and slept with her adopted sister. You deserve to lose her love. Rose thorns pricked David Sterling's cheek, and bright red drops of blood trickled down his face. He roared hoarsely, "You're lying. Kat loves me." I stood there in silence for a while before finally speaking. "It was because I loved you that when you were in the operating room for gastric bleeding surgery, I knelt at the door and begged the heavens. It was because I loved you that after you said you wanted a child, I received countless injections as part of her treatment every day. My lower body hurt so much I couldn't take a single step." David Sterling was completely frozen, his face streaked with blood and tears. "I know I was wrong, but I didn't force you to do any of that." Robert's face dark. "Just because Kat willingly did good things for you, she deserved to be mistreated by you. She gave you her true heart, but you repaid her with betrayal and failure." David Sterling, "Even a dog will wag its tail for a scrap. You're worse than a dog." He released his grip on David Sterling, watching him collapse to the ground. He whimpered, curled up on the ground. "Kat, I was wrong. I'll send Tiffany away, let's start over." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you remember what I said during the car accident?" At that time, I was covered in blood from the crash, and still smiled, comforting him, telling him not to be scared, that I would protect him. "None of that counts anymore, because you're not worth it." Robert wrapped an arm around me, and led me away. David Sterling's wailing cry echoed. "Kat, you said you would marry me." But I didn't look back, saying lightly, "Your memory is surprisingly good now." "Then how could you forget, when your mother had an affair with a wealthy black businessman, you swore you would never be a person as dirty as she was." He trembled violently all over, small whimpers escaping his throat. Robert covered my ears. "Disgusting. Kat, don't listen." The day we got married, David Sterling sent a huge gift box. After the wedding, the housekeeper hesitated before handing it to me, but I smiled and told him to throw it in the trash can. "Bad luck," I said. "It belongs with the trash." Robert took off my elaborate wedding veil, remarking indifferently, "Sterling Corp announced bankruptcy this morning. I had someone submit the evidence of his tax evasion. Even if he can afford the fine, he'll probably face prison time. As for the child, I heard David Sterling gave her away to a minor chief of an African tribe. And they were cannibals." I opened my phone to check the news, and unsightly photos of Tiffany popped up. After her intimate relationship with David Sterling was exposed, people gossiped about the scandalous affair between the adopted daughter and her sister's husband. In the pictures, Tiffany, wrapped in a towel, leaned against the bodyguard's muscular chest. There were also pictures of her and a fitness trainer being intimate in the changing room, and by the poolside, flirting with a blonde, blue-eyed swimming instructor. I just found it incredibly gross, and disgustedly closed my phone. The day Robert accompanied me for my prenatal checkup, an ambulance arrived at the hospital, pushing a bloody, mangled person into the emergency room. For a moment, they looked familiar. It wasn't until that evening that I found out David Sterling had been retaliated against by Tiffany's lover, and the car accident had left him in a vegetative state. Robert wrapped his arms around me from behind, his palm resting on my swollen belly. He got what he deserved. I nodded in agreement and drank the nourishing tonic he brought to my lips. My happy future was right before me.